Listen Up with Jim Potts. Listen up, business owners, CFOs, human resource managers, and all managers and supervisors. Jim Potts is answering and addressing your questions and concerns, helping you stay out of court. Furthermore, please be advised that Jim's answers are not legal advice and are only intended as a guide based on his years of experience. The phone lines are open. 1-855-4-J-POTS. That's 1-855-457-6887. You can also email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. Ready to listen up? Here is Jim Potts.
Jim Potts back on the air. Thank you so much for tuning back into me. I got an email from you know what? I don't want to say this is a millennial, all right? So, because I've gotten a few of those, but this has to do with the person asking about their boss and them trying to get their boss fired. Now, I want you to listen to this. My coworkers and I are all miserable because our manager is, in a word, terrible. I can't tell you, boy. This to me is just so amazing. Everybody thinks their boss is miserable and that they're always the one that can do the better job, but that's okay. What I'd love to list, while I'd love to list her shortcomings, and she's saying there are many of them, I'll just say that in the 7 months she has been here, she single-handedly ruined what used to be a fantastic, high-functioning group. Now, the person goes on to say that finally, one of our co-workers named Susan approached HR about the problems that they were having. Now, apparently, what happened was that this launched a little investigation into their team. So in other words, when this person went and complained, HR did what they were supposed to do, and in fact, began an investigation about the complaint that this woman levied against her manager. Now, from that perspective, they looked at this and said, okay, it took 8 weeks. So over the past 8 weeks or so, according to this person, HR has been meeting with each of them individually, and also with Susan and their manager together, and the manager's boss. Now, and some of them are meeting separately as well. I think I mentioned that. Now, it says we were sure that this investigation would culminate in our manager's termination. Yet she persists. Now look, Susan, just because somebody complains about their manager, HR does an investigation. It's always amazing to me with people complaining about their managers, and they don't like the results. Why wasn't our manager fired? Well, who is it that's going to determine whether the manager should be fired? It's certainly not the employee. Can you imagine if we permit employees to complain so much about their managers that all managers get fired? I mean, that doesn't make sense. So HR has to look into it. HR has to make a determination in terms of, in fact, what's going on. Now, I want to point something out because I'm reading this and I see that they put Susan up to this person up to this, but the other people who were unhappy, they're not the ones who came forward. So I'm sure HR looked at this like it's a one-on-one situation, and they were interviewing the other people in the department. What's not being disclosed is the fact that what did the other people tell HR in the investigation? If they're amening what Susan is saying, then that's one thing. Well, look, as far as they could tell, their manager is now railroading them at every turn, and HR is blaming Susan for being insubordinate. They also seem to think, that's the person that wrote in, they also seem to think that the rest of the people are all on edge because these two people don't get along. I'm sorry, the person they complained about was Susan, apparently. That Susan is the one that complained about the manager, so Susan's the one that went to HR. The person emailing me is not named Susan. Let me make that clear. All right? So, is what's going on now, they're just looking at it like we got two employees that can't get along from the HR perspective. The manager and this woman named Susan. When in fact, none of them are getting along with the manager. But that's not what's come out from what I'm reading here. So, to them now, it seems completely infeasible that they don't see what's really going on, but that they show no indication that they're going to do anything but develop more process for them and mediate the conflict between the manager and Susan. So now they're feeling pretty well helpless according to this. And now she indicates we're all looking for a job because they're all unhappy. And it's what she wants to be able to tactfully communicate is that you're about to lose the entire team of people if you don't get rid of our boss. And we're vaguely considering approaching HR as a group, but we're not even sure how that conversation would go. And now the person's asking for any insight that I could provide. Look, you guys should have probably gone there as a group before, but remember a couple of weeks ago, the last group that I told you about that went, I think it was some interns, and they all went, in a group and complained about something. Next thing you know, they were all out of a job. Now look, I'm not saying in this particular scenario that every one of you would be out of a job about this, but the way I look at it is why didn't you collectively go to HR in the first place? You guys set this up for failure by sending one person into the gates of hell, basically, to turn around and complain about a manager, and HR is only looking at this, we got a complaint from a person about one person. Now, I don't want to say it's too late, but you can still do that and leave that door open. And should you be fired behind complaining about a bad manager? No. And I hesitate to call the person a bad manager because I don't know all those facts. This person that's writing this email is not necessarily giving me all of the detail. They're just talking about, making conclusionary statements about how bad this manager is. They're not really getting into any specifics as to what the manager is doing. Now, managers have a tough job. They've got to manage you, and they also have to report to upper management. Upper management may be telling them something that they have to enforce as a policy, and you don't like the policy or you don't like those procedures, so therefore you want to complain about it and state things like, I've got a bad manager. Now, look, I'm not going to say that there's not bad managers out there. There's some bad managers out there. They just don't know what the heck they're doing. I get that. All right, but you're asking me to give you some insight, but you're not giving me specifics in the terms of what's going on with this manager. So, I understand. I mean, we get calls. People hate their jobs, hate their managers, and why was that person, promoted? I should have been the one that's been promoted, because I'm the greatest one since sliced bread, and they're not. I get that also. But look, if things are that bad, you said you're looking for another job, in my opinion, you're actively looking for a job, and they're even helping each other look, by the way. Well, you also indicate that you'd like to really salvage the situation, if at all possible. I don't know what you would like me to recommend. To me, you guys should have been up and honest in the first place with this. Instead of sending Susan in there, you probably all should have gone and filed an individual complaint collectively. And I think this is a little bit different than the dress code situation, because if this manager is creating a hostile work environment, I think that's a little bit different. Because if in fact it's a hostile work environment situation for whatever it is, you guys could have written, a communication that was tactful in terms of what exactly is going on in the department. Now, I don't know the organization. If you're writing it to HR, writing it to this manager's boss, and they don't see things the same way you do, I don't think that boss is going to be a happy person. But I will say also, managers out there, I tell you this all the time, do not complain. Do not take retaliatory action against employees for complaining about working conditions. Period. Now, as I stated a couple of weeks ago, that's against the law in California. Violates the California Labor Code. Cannot take any adverse action against an employee for complaining about working conditions. So look, because you've provided me with only a limited amount of information, I can only give you a little bit, a little bit of advice on that. But I will tell you, the general concept is that when people have an issue, whether it's a manager with an employee or an employee with a manager, I will tell you this: document, document, document. Some of you out there I know are laughing because, oh my God, here he goes with the documentation again. What do you think it takes? It takes documentation. If you're going to write a general letter to HR and you don't have specifics in there like you didn't have in here, I don't know that that's going to go anywhere. HR can call you in. Now, they've already interviewed all of you. All right? When they interviewed you, how much specifics did you give HR at that time? And now you want to write a tactful communication back to HR Why didn't you speak up when you got called in for those individual interviews? So I'm not sure why you didn't. You got to encourage everybody to do the same thing. If they have an issue, they got to put it down. They got to write it. All right. Make sure that you're clear about whatever it is that you're complaining about. This letter to me is not clear. So hopefully you'll write something that's more clear and direct to HR with giving specific examples. And if you do that, then maybe that will help. And I also don't know how long that manager has been there versus how long you've all been there. The manager's been there 20 years. I don't know. Is it a new manager? Is it a new manager? Give them a chance to get acclimated. All right, you never know. All right, with that last comment, it's time to close out this segment. But let me remind you, you can also hear us on Facebook at Listen Up and subscribe to us on iTunes. Just search for Listen Up with Jim Potts. And as a reminder, we take calls every third Friday between 9:45 and 11 or so. All right. You can call us at 855-4J-POTS or 855-457-6887 or email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. Okay, I'm Jim Potts. Thanks for listening. I will catch you next time. Try to stay cool.
Thank you for being a part of Listen Up with Jim Potts. We take your calls every third Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for your questions and concerns. Call us at 1-855-4J-POTS. That's 1-855-4J-POTS. Again, that's every third Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at 1-855-4J-POTS. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes, and link up with us on LinkedIn. You can also email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. Until next time, make it a great week.